Hello and welcome back in this very awesome and special requested video. So I received actually 22 hours ago a cool requested video by Mr. Privlin F16D3. So he requested the latest, I think, Hyundai V6 engine, which called the Lambada the T-GDI 2, which is a very economical, and actually this engine is making decent amount of power and torque when it comes to Hyundai engines. And it's very, as we all know, like most of Hyundai engines are very economical, and this one it's not that different also from them. So it's a 3.3 liter V6 engine with twin turbos, made entirely from aluminium, and it's making decent amount of power. It's very efficient, it's very economical, and apparently according to Mr. Privlin F16D3, this engine won the best engine award in 2018 because it's efficient, powerful, etc. You get the point. So before we start with all of the specs for this engine, I would love to remind you guys that please, if you enjoyed the video, to hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button, get subscribed if you are new to the channel, and and share the video if you want to share it. And so let's start with the engine. Let's start with the specs for this engine. So this engine is a V-shaped 60 degrees 6-cylinder engine made. The block is made from aluminium. We have 92mm on the bore and 83.8mm on the stroke, which equals 3342 cc engine, or you can say a 3.3 liter engine. Dual overhead camshaft with 4 valves per cylinder. We have aluminium cylinder head material, and this was actually surprising because when I started making this engine, I made it using VVL. I assumed this engine is using variable valve lift with variable valve timing, but apparently according to Hyundai, they made it with only, as they call it, the CVVT technology, which is variable valve timing for all cams. And I had to cancel, I had to remove the variable valve lift technology and continue only with variable valve timing alone, and that made the engine a little bit less smooth because, as we all know, variable valve lift is this technology. It will give the camshaft another extra loop, and this loop will engage at a certain RPM, and that loop will be much more aggressive than the regular cam profile, and it should make more power, more torque, but it will make the engine a lot more aggressive. And when the RPM drops, the camshaft will get back to its normal eco smoothness, daily driving profile. And I assume that this engine has this technology, but no, apparently they made it only with variable valve timing, and yes, that's why I removed it. So let's continue. We have a cast iron crankshaft, cast connecting rods, and low friction cast pistons. Well, I'm not really sure about the internals for this engine because apparently no one ever said anything about the materials, and Mr. Privlin he did not provide me with the materials for this engine. So I assume that this engine, since this engine top RPM or max RPM is 6000 RPM, I assume the crankshaft should be made from regular cast iron. Connecting rods, the same idea. But when it comes to pistons, since this engine is aimed specifically to burn as less fuel as possible and to make a good amount or decent amount of power and torque, I assume that maybe Hyundai used low friction cast pistons so they can make their engine to produce more miles per gallon with decent amount of power and torque, and that was fine, and I have chosen that. But apparently these low friction cast pistons, they are very weak. Actually, they are not that much strong, and since this engine is twin turbocharged, as you can see, the torque of this engine is too much for these pistons. So that's why I pushed the quality a little bit to +7, so I can make these pistons strong enough to contain, and so they can take this amount of torque. Moving on, we have 10.0 to 1 is the official compression ratio for this engine, 63 on the cam profile, and as you can see, as I was talking before about the VVL, I have set this engine. I already set the variable valve timing, variable valve lift profile on 84, as you can see, and the cam profile I set it, I think, on 51, and that made the engine very smooth, very economical, and very beautiful to drive actually as a daily driving engine. But as I mentioned before, when I learned that there is no variable valve lift, I removed it and I continued with a regular cam profile and variable valve timing on all cams. We have +1 quality on the camshafts and everything related to them. Twin turbochargers with ball bearing internals. Also, I'm not really sure about the bearings for the turbos. Are they regular journal bearings or high performance ball bearing? So I assumed, because this engine is making like nearly all of its low end torque at low end RPM, I assumed that, and I used ball bearing, the best bearings for any kind of turbo. 547 horsepower supporting intercooler with 36 on the compressor, 36mm on the compressor, and 32mm on the turbine, with maxed out AR ratio of 1.40. With this setup, you will have low end torque, high end and high end horsepower. Perfect setup for any twin turbocharged engine. 13 psi of boost. Also, I'm not really sure about the boost. No one mentioned anything about it, so I worked with 13 psi of boost, and I assume this is perfect. And it's perfect. We are making the official power and torque figures for the real engine, so everything so far is perfect, with +2 quality on the turbos. Direct fuel injection with single throttle body and standard intake manifold. If you are wondering why I have chosen standard instead of performance, because as we all know, Hyundai engines tend to be very quiet when they run, when they rev, and yeah, I kept the same tradition. So standard intake manifold, perfect setup. Premium 95 octane fuel, and I promise I tried really hard to make this engine to run on 91 octane fuel, but apparently because this engine came in the Hyundai Stinger and the Hyundai Genesis, according to the manufacturer recommendation, you should fill the Genesis and the Stinger with premium 95 octane fuel, since this engine is twin turbocharged, and so I continued with premium 95. 13.8 is the air fuel ratio, 70 on the ignition timing, 6000 is the official RPM, with +4 quality on the fuel system. We have dual exhaust pipe, 3-inch exhaust diameter or 76.2mm, and yeah, I think it's too much. 3-inch exhaust diameter, I think it's too much for this engine, but to make the official power and torque figures, I had to push it to 3-inch. I think in real life it should be around 2-inch, 1.8 or maybe 2.2. You know, you get the idea. Medium normal size exhaust system. High flow 3-way catalytic converter with reverse flow mufflers on the first. Is the first option, and as a second muffler I have chosen straight through mufflers so I can make it quiet and to flow good. And I have chosen bypass barrels because I assumed, well, in the Hyundai Stinger you will have a button or a drive mode called Sport, and with that mode the valves in the mufflers will open and you will have a more sporty exhaust note, and the exhaust should flow much better. I had to use +9 quality so I can make the exhaust quiet and so I can make it to flow better. So the final result is 365 horsepower at 6000 RPM, like the official engine, like the real engine, and the torque is 376 pound-feet of torque at 4000 RPM, also like the real engine. We have reliability is very good. The engine is medium weight, it's not that heavy, it's not that light. Well, let's see, service cost is low, fuel efficiency it's very good, and let's see, the octane, we are using nearly all of the octane. The engine is very clean, it's smooth even without VVL, but it should have been made with VVLs, because with variable valve lift we have reached like 62-63 points in smoothness. Without VVL, well, it's 57. Well, that's what Hyundai designed the engine, so I'm gonna stick with it. The engine is responsive, it's very quiet, it's very good, and this is a one-time replica. This is not I'm not gonna mass produce this engine, so don't tell me in the comment section below and eat my head off and saying the engineering time is too much or the production units take years and years to be produced. Well, I know that, but this is a one-time shot, a one-time replica of a great engine. And so as you can see, this is the engine. Now let's fire it up and see what's what, but let me show you the inside first. So this is how it looks. Typical Hyundai looking, regular cast iron crankshaft, thin cast connecting rods, and those cast or low friction cast pistons. Typical Hyundai grey looking internals. So the engine is idling at 800 RPM and it's producing 176 pound-feet of torque at idle, which is very good. Let me explain something so quickly. As you can see, this is the graph of the power and torque. I really tried hard making the turbos small enough and efficient enough to kick them or to start spooling them like at 1800, maybe 2000 RPM. And with these, I mean, these are as small as they will get, these turbos. And if I want to make them smaller and to make the torque to make them to peak or to spool quicker, I need to lower the AR ratio and make the compressor much smaller, and that will result in a lot less power and torque. And no, I want to reach the official power and torque figures and make them as efficient as possible, and this is as efficient as they will get in automation games. So as you can see, the turbos will kick in, let's say at 2000, let's say 700 RPM. Actually here 2500, they will start to spool slowly, and they will reach their optimum speed here, and then hell will break loose, as you can see, and power will keep on going to 365 horsepower. So as you can see, this is as efficient as it will get. I do apologize if this engine is not as efficient as the real engine, but when it comes to fuel economy, it's very economical. The numbers are the same as the real engine, but the power and torque graph are a little bit different from the real engine. So what do you think about this engine? What do you think about the real engine? Also tell me in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you guys. What do you think about it? So please, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, get subscribed, share the video if you want to share it, and hit that notification bell button so you can get a notification each time I release a new video. And thank you so much guys for watching, and thank you so much Mr. Privlin F16D3 for your amazing request. And I'm gonna see you very soon with more cool amazing videos like this one, and even more cooler than this one. And goodbye for now, and have an amazing evening or day or night or whatever time you are watching this video in. Goodbye my friends.